Now, today we're going to be talking about some real fake animals. Now, what do I mean by real fake animals? Well, to put it just like as simple as possible, there are some animals that people thought, well, they were fake. They're imaginary, they're not real, they don't exist, right? I've heard of it. No, that's not a real thing. And then it turns out they were in fact real. And then they're like, huh, well, I was wrong. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about animals that were widely believed to not be real and were in fact real. So the first animal that we're going to be talking about is the platypus. Why? Well, like all of the animals on this list, it was once thought to not be real. Why was it thought to not be real at one point? Well, think about it like this, right? Imagine you are a European explorer exploring Australia, and then you see a platypus because they're in Australia. Would you think it's real? Like, tell me honestly, would you think that this creature is real? Because, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't. I'm going to be honest with you, I would think it's fake. Now, like, why? Well, just let's first start with the physical features, right? It looks like a sewn together animal. It has the bill of a duck. It has the body of an otter and the tail of a beaver. It looks like a stitched together animal. Now, beyond just physical characteristics like that you could see on sight, it also has venom and it has eggs. None of these things are things that back then they were like, oh yes, that's real. Like it seemed like a stitched together animal with all these features of different animals. And to be honest, that is what I would think. In my opinion, if I was to set my mind back there and put myself in the mind of a European explorer, I think that I would think that it was like some sort of magician's puppet show or something. Like they sewed together an animal and then they like put it up there and like pretended like it was real and like cast magic on it because it doesn't look real. And apparently the Europeans kind of agreed with me, not like the magic part, but the sewn together part, because they said, yeah, this isn't real. It's fabricated. It's not real. And so what happened was these bodies of these platypuses were taken to Europe, right, so that the naturalists in Europe could examine them and see, hey, is this real? What's going on with this? And they actually tried to like find stitching and stuff. It took so long, and they finally said, yeah, actually, these platypuses they're real. They're actually real animals. So in the end, if you're in Australia and you see an animal, um, automatically believe it. It's not a puppet show made by a witch. Now that you have learned a life lesson about magic puppet shows, we're going to move on to the Okapi. Now, what is the story of the Okapi? Well, you see, the Okapi were not, they were again not believed to be real by the Europeans. Why was it this time? Well, you see, here's how it happened. The people native to Africa said, "Hey, Europeans, this is a real creature that is in fact real and exists." Now, the Europeans never found this creature. Like, they just didn't think it was real because this creature is, in fact, very difficult to actually find. Like, the Europeans, for a very long time, just didn't find any of them. So they're like, we haven't found an Okapi. We just don't think it exists. And there are a few reasons that they just didn't find it. Number one, it's a very difficult place. Like where Okapis live, it's a very difficult place to just traverse through and but also it was kind of like traversed through multiple times. So what happened was like it's a very hard place to like find an okapi, and also the Europeans, since they had been through this forest a few times, they're like, we should have found an okapi by now if it did exist, but we haven't in fact. So it's not existing now. In the end, obviously, as this list goes, okapi were finally agreed to be an animal that exists because in the 1900s, which is surprisingly recently, this guy brought back to Europe a actual skeleton of an okapi. So, in the end, okapis are agreed to exist as real creatures and not just fake creatures that Europeans have never even seen. Now, footnote here. Here's a little PS here. Interesting thing. Learning about okapis for this list here. Apparently, they're like really endangered now. Like the estimates of their population go as low as like a few thousand, which is very sad. That I just find it very sad that we're like, this is a creature that in fact exists, and we've just got about killing them. So here's another life lesson for you. Just because it exists doesn't mean it should die. Please save this creature that has done nothing to you. This poor little, or not really little, this poor okapi, or these poor okapis. Our last animal takes us all the way back to Australia again, and it is the Komodo dragon. You see, people didn't believe the Komodo dragon existed because, like, the idea among many scientists was that the age of these big lizards was over. We had the age of dinosaurs, and they're done now. And they're gone. And the idea of having a Komodo dragon, a giant lizard, was to many of them just like laughable. And so, when there were tales from people in Indonesia that there were, in fact, giant lizard dinos basically on the island, they were disregarded. They were many people were just like, "Psh, there's folktales." But as you can tell from this list being here, and also maybe you know what a Komodo dragon is already, they were not in fact folktales, and Komodo dragons are indeed real creatures. They were found, or like they were like actually like accepted by the scientific community in early 1900s, which like as again with the other ones, like the early 1900s may seem like a long time ago, but like I feel like we should have known them about them, and they should have been widely accepted probably much sooner. Because, like, they're not very small creatures, but in the end, that's when they were found and accepted widely, and now we have Komodo dragons that exist, and people agree with that. Now, just another side note for this one: Komodo dragons are also endangered. There are like not that many left, also, like the Okapi. So maybe don't mess with them. There are a few reasons you should not mess with them. Number one, because they're actually really dangerous, and also because that would just be mean. So just don't mess with a Komodo dragon, because I'm pretty sure they also have venom. And do you want to get that? No, the Komodo dragon doesn't want to bite you. You don't want to get bitten by the Komodo dragon. I'm also assuming that you don't want to bite a Komodo dragon, so just don't. So here we are now at the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about animals that people thought were not real, and in fact were, and they were all wrong. But here we are in the end. If you have any other things that you would like to say, comment them, because that's what the comment section is used for. And that's all I really have to say, except for the lesson of the entire video, which I think you should probably know. So in the end, I think that the lesson for this video is just believe everything that anyone tells you about animals, because it's right. So if someone says that they see a fairy that is a duck fairy that flies around in their backyard near a tree with that throws sand at you and has venom, just believe them, because they're obviously right. So there you go. Thank you for listening to this video. Goodbye.